Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Triangle BNI. My name is Mike Manning, and each week we bring you a wonderful story from BNI, some local small business owners who have joined BNI to grow their business. And if you are not familiar with BNI, it is the world's largest networking organization in the Triangle here, our little slice of heaven. If you're not familiar with North Carolina, it's the Raleigh, Durham, Chapel Hill area. We've got just over 30 chapters, almost 700 members, and each week we bring you a wonderful success story of how people have used BNI to either start or grow their business. Our guest today is Kenny Bollinger, He's a managing partner of Madison Oaks Wealth Partners. Kenny, good to have you today.
Thank you for having me. I'm glad to be here.
So Kenny is president of RD21, the Glenwood South Connection. They meet Wednesdays at Joko
XOCO
restaurant. Wonderful food. If
Very
you're a
good food.
Mexican, if you're a fan of Mexican food, oh, wonderful. And to get 20 minutes of chips and dip before the meeting and before the meal, that's gold right there.
It is very good.
So anyways, Kenny holds the financial seat in his chapter, and we'll get into a little bit more about that. He is also president of RD21. How's that going?
It's going well. It's been an interesting 16 months or so. So it's been fun. We've seen a lot of growth over the last year.
Yeah.
We've doubled the size of our chapter. We have a great group of members that get along well, interact well with each other, and we have fun doing it. So
Yeah,
it's enjoyable.
Your chapter's bought in, I guess about 6 or 7 months ago, kind of changed the focus, got a little more down and dirty.
Correct.
The policies, procedures, everybody gets some buy-in, and the numbers have just been off the charts since then.
They're going in the right direction, and we got big goals for 2019. So we're excited, and we're headed in the right direction. So we look forward to a great year.
We like to just congratulate the quality leadership of a chapter like that. So we'll go with that.
It's the members. It's the members.
It is.
It's not me. It's the members.
Always good to have the captain at least pointing the ship in the right direction, right?
Correct. Yeah.
But that's the nice thing about BNI or the successful chapters. Everybody's rowing in the same direction.
That's right. That's a key thing, to have everyone rowing in the right direction. The ship almost sails itself at that point.
And your chapter is very entertaining, so I enjoy visiting. And we've had a couple people.
We have a good group.
We've had a couple people from your chapter on the show. We'll get into that. But in BNI chapter each week, there's a featured speaker. And depending on the size of your group, it's either 5 minutes or 10 minutes. And each week, the speaker is introduced by the member bio sheet. That's how we do it here. So, Kenny, that's what we're going to do. So our speaker today, Kenny Bollinger, managing partner, Madison Oaks Wealth Partners. Location for the office?
1511 Sunday Drive, Suite 214. It's just off of Edward Mills in Trinity.
And how long is the company been in operation?
We are approaching our second year. My partner and I were with a larger financial firm and wanted to kind of get away from a bigger firm that kind of forces you to sell their own products. And we wanted to become independent and start our own wealth management company where we could really put the client's interest ahead of our own. And so it's been a wonderful move. I would say 99% of our clients followed us, which is a testament to the relationships that we have with our own clients. And we continue to grow and grow. We actually just added a third person over the last couple of months, who's one of the fastest growing young advisors in the area. So we're really excited about the future of Madison Oaks Wealth Partners.
Very good. And we'll get into talking about that in a little bit, about the advantages of being a smaller shop, an independent shop, and what that allows you to do. Second favorite question on here is previous types of jobs. I got your work history. I love the high school and the high school era jobs, of either the more interesting or more memorable ones.
The first job was washing dishes at my grandparents' restaurant, which I really had no choice. I was told I was going to work there with 3 or 4 of my other cousins, and we had a very fun time.
And how old were you then?
I probably shouldn't say, because I could get in trouble now. But
you wouldn't be the first one on
exactly.
the show.
I would say 13 or 14 when you start washing dishes. And
how good were you?
I was promoted to grill cook, so I think I did okay. So it was a lot of fun. A lot of memories from those times. And one of the sadder moments, I had to walk into my grandparents and say, "Listen, I don't want to do this anymore." And they're like, "But you don't get free lunch at the next job or this." I was like, "I still don't want to work here." And I moved on to work in golf course maintenance throughout high school.
Okay.
It was one of those early jobs. You're up at 5:30, but you're done by 2:30, which in the summer were phenomenal.
Gold, yeah.
Yeah. So it was a lot of fun.
So what kind of restaurant did your grandparents have?
It was the equivalent of, today's diner, I guess,
Okay.
back in, small town Kansas. It served a smorgasbord of, food, every day. The fried chicken was probably the staple back then,
Mhm.
and Sundays, there were lines out the door,
Oh, yeah.
so people come from all over, but it was just a mixture of everything.
And being a small town, did you pretty much know everybody that was coming in?
Knew everyone that was coming in. Yes, exactly, and
Was that a good thing? Now that you look
depends.
back, growing up in I did not grow up in a small town, but looking back, was it a pretty good way to grow up?
There's a really good way, but there's the bad side of it too, to where everyone knows you and knows your business, and that's, you know, not always the best thing.
Uh,
But it was a lot of people would come back there, and I grew up on a farm originally for the first 5, 6 years of my life, 1,000-acre farm, and my dad and another guy worked the ground, and that guy, my dad's partner, would always come back into the kitchen, just walk back there and go, "Oh, I see you're wearing an apron," because you had to have something on as you're washing the dishes, so it was pretty funny, and they harassed me quite a bit about being in the back.
what was the pay back then?
Started with a 2. I think a couple dollars an hour, so it was tough, but it was
Yeah,
fun. Yeah. And it was your grandparents, is a family
yeah,
restaurant. We were happy to do it, and like I said, I wash dishes not with other coworkers, but my cousin.
yeah.
I come from a very big family on, my mom's side. I'm probably one of 35 grandchildren,
Oh,
so, yes,
geez.
there are a lot of us that work together. We have a lot of good stories, and I didn't have cousins, they were my friends. I
Yeah,
mean, we did a lot together, not because they were my cousins, just because we were friendly. We were close to the same age. We
okay.
did a lot of the same things together, and a lot of good stories.
Very nice, which shall be told at another time.
Yes,
Okay.
exactly.
Personal information part of the member bio sheet, your spouse.
My spouse is Stephanie.
Yes, and 2 boys.
2 boys, one is 15, Brian is 15, and Sean is 12,
All
and they're a lot of fun, getting into those teenage years to where
right. Oh, yeah.
their moods can change
Yeah, you can
on
be
a whim, and they like to sleep a lot, which,
they do, yes.
I'm sure I did at that age also, but I'm kinda like, "Come on, let's go, guys, let's go." But
You're
they're a lot of fun.
and you're getting ready to have to talk to your auto insurance guy here in a little while with a 15-year-old,
I
right?
do, yes. It's really odd that you don't have to insure a kid with a permit, but once he gets his
Mhm.
legal driver's license, then
Yeah,
you gotta get him insured. So,
yeah.
we're in their permit stage, and we were down to Georgia over the holidays, and he drove 2.5 hours each way, which was
Oh,
some
good,
good
okay.
highway driving for him to get on 95
Yeah.
and, experience some of that stuff, and he drove in some driving rain, so it was some good experience.
Who's the better teacher, you or your wife?
No doubt myself. Yeah. My wife's a little, um, impatient at times with him probably, so believe it or not, I have a little bit more patience than she does when it
I
comes to driving.
Yeah, I told my youngest son when he got his permit, I said, "All right, we're gonna get in the car, and here's the deal. If I tell you to do something, you do it. You can
Right.
ask me later, but if I tell you do it, you do it right now." And once we got to that agreement, everything went fine. But
Exactly.
because you can't raise the voice. I mean, we all look back to a 15-year-old, can't go, if they're swerving off the side of the road or whatever, you can't but just
Correct.
just move over, But I told him, "If I tell you to do something, do it."
It tests your patience, though. It definitely tests your patience, so it's fun, though.
Yeah. But it's nice when the oldest one gets their license, then they start carting the younger one around. You'll enjoy the benefits of that.
I will, I'm
Yeah.
looking forward to that, but the way the 2 boys get along right now, there's gonna be screaming and hollering because I think the 12-year-old thinks he already knows how to drive better than the 15-year-old, so it'll be fun.
And he'll tell the 15-year-old, "Here's where I need to go tomorrow. You're driving me," right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
It'll be a lot of fun between the 2 of them.
Judge Kenny in the house, right?
Yes, exactly.
Animals.
I have one,
You have a
and
wonderful dog.
we love him obviously to death. I was not a huge proponent of bringing a dog into the house,
Mm,
and, we saw a dog who was beautiful. My wife's like, "He's gorgeous. Can we get a similar one?" And I'm like, "Dog shed." I'm not a big
mm.
hair in the hair everywhere, fur in the house, and she's like, "He's hypoallergenic," and that caught my attention. And long story, we were living in New York at the time, flew down to Tennessee to pick up the 7-pound golden doodle
Mm.
and fly back on the plane, holding him on the plane, and now he's a 75-pound golden doodle who is another human being in the
He is.
house.
Oh, yeah.
It's really another human being, so it's a lot of fun. It's nice if you're ever in a stressful moment, throw the leash on him, take him for a walk through the neighborhood or out to the American Tobacco Trail is where you can find me almost every weekend with
Okay.
him, walking him, a couple miles. He's a real he's a great puppy.
He was cute at 7 pounds, now he's like a 3rd son, right?
He is, yes, exactly.
Hobbies and activities of interest.
Hobbies, I love to play golf. It's enjoyable. I think 4 hours kind of out in nature is
Mhm.
kind of a way to get away from everything. I try to put my cell phone down and not look at it for 4 hours and just enjoy hitting a little white ball and
Yep.
sometimes too much, but it's a lot of fun. I'm a huge college sports fan. You and I have talked off the air about
Mhm.
college sports, and so enjoy watching. I don't care if it's my team or another team.
Mhm.
There's a lot of passion, there's a lot of energy in college sports that's fun to watch. And then I love reading autobiographies. They're just interesting.
Okay.
I like seeing how people have become successful and try and take something from each one of those different stories.
What's the last one you read that
Ken Langone, Capitalism.
okay.
He's one of the founders of Home Depot.
Oh,
His story is really interesting, how he was raised, where he was born, and his determination to get to the highest level, within his business, and he just continued to strive and strive, and you read it, it's a really, really good book. He's just a capitalist at heart, and it's something that I could take a lot
yeah.
away from that, just how you work yourself to become the best that you can be.
Oh, good. Your burning desire is to
Probably the biggest burning desire is a, 2-week African safari with my family.
ooh,
So, it's always been something on my bucket list. Uh, we're working toward it. We've done a little bit of planning and research, so I think we'll get there. It
mhm,
becomes, when can we go? When you have 2 teenage
yeah,
boys, one is in band who plays all summer long, or they practice all summer long. So, you kinda got a short window where when and how we can get there.
yeah.
So, it's on our bucket list, and we'll get it done.
Okay. The key to your success is
Being honest, being personable, and really caring about my clients, I think. I have a driving passion to do what is in the best interest of my clients, not what is in the best interest of a higher being, but that drives me every day, that wakes me up. I wake up, I thinking about how can I do what is right for the client and work as hard as I can to be as successful as I can with my clients and build relationships that aren't transactional, that last a lifetime.
yeah, money in general changes everything. You can always tell, you see the readings of wills, you see once money gets into the middle of a relationship, it has the ability to change things in a heartbeat. In your world though, if somebody's going to give you their hard-earned money, that relationship and that work ethic and that connection has to be there too.
Yeah, it definitely has to be there. And that's what we take the time to build a relationship. This is not just, hey, this is who we are, hand over your money.
Yeah.
This is the process in building a relationship. And sometimes I can attest it's taken 2 years to finally build a relationship with the person or client that finally entrusted me, with their money. And so that's rewarding and persistence pays off. You just have to continually stay in touch with people. They is have to feel you out. They have to know, like, and trust you,
Oh
much
yeah.
like BNI, know, like, and trust. And it takes a little while, but that's something that persistence is key. There's a lot of people that may meet someone or have a meeting and it doesn't go well and they give up.
Mhm.
I'm not giving up. There's a time where you pull the cord maybe, but I'm persistent enough to get to that point to where I know this isn't,
Mm.
from a standpoint of I may meet with him 3, 4, 5, 6 times, and then maybe you realize that it's not going to work. But that persistent pays off over time because you can cultivate relationships over time versus a 1-hour meeting,
Yeah.
introductory meeting.
Oh yeah.
And that's where it takes time, and that's where persistence pays off.
Mm. All right, my favorite question. Granted, there's some new people here who have not met you yet. Something no one knows about you.
That's an interesting one. I mentioned earlier to you that no one probably really knows the fact that at 4 or 5, I quickly told my mom, and this was when we lived on a farm, that I wanna be a suit man. Now, what did that really mean at 4 or 5? It just meant that I really didn't wanna work on a farm for the rest of my life. I love going home, working on a farm for a couple days, but I really wanted to be a suit man, whatever that meant, whether that was a banker, whether that was working on Wall Street, whether that was being a financial advisor. That was something that a lot of people don't know about
Yeah, you don't hear that too much. She had to
me.
stop for a second and go, "Huh."
Yeah, and she'll still tell the story, and she like, "I don't know what exactly he meant, but he wanted to wear a suit."
And you look very nice today, so I'm
Mm,
assuming you've
thank you.
had your fair share of suits on over the years, right? And you're comfortable in a coat and tie and
Yeah, it's
okay.
very simple at this point.
Yeah,
You know,
it
it's a
just
blue suit, a white shirt, or a blue suit and a blue shirt, and you throw the tie. The tie is the hardest thing to match.
Oh, yeah,
You
yeah.
go from there, so it's a lot of fun.
Alright, so we're starting off a new year here, early January. So what was, 2018 like for you and for the firm?
Well, 2018 for myself and for the firm saw tremendous growth. Um, it just I think the more active you get, the more activity you know, comes along. And so we had a really good growth year. We're expecting really big things in 2019. We have goals, whether it's on a weekly or monthly basis, that we meet as a firm. And there are three individuals within the firm, but we also work together as a whole to you know, grow the firm, market the firm. And so right now, 2019 is off to a really good start. Obviously, we're doing a lot of hand holding through the market
Mhm.
ups
Yep.
and downs, but it's been a lot of fun being independent and watching a firm grow from what it was 2 years ago to where it is now and where we will be at the end of 2019.
And I'm sure your phone rang off the hook in December. We'll just
Yeah,
leave it at
it was a
that.
busy season, yes, exactly.
If you've never been to a BNI meeting, one of the neat things about BNI is it's seat specific. So Kenny's the only financial person in the chapter. It's a dues paying organization and it's $445 a year. But the beauty of it is you're the only person in that field in the chapter. So as Kenny mentioned earlier, know, like, and trust your fellow members get to that point with you, and they're going to start sending you referrals. And so each week, they'll talk, they'll people will stand up and talk about, we do 30, 45 seconds, again, depending on the size of your group, your kind of who you are and what you're looking for. So specific is terrific. We always stand up and say, I'm looking for this person, that company, all the stuff like that. If you want to learn more about BNI, you can go to trianglebni.com. You can give us a call at 919-465-1667. Yeah, like I said, go to trianglebni.com there. You can also email us at trianglebni at or BNI at nissancommunications.com. If you have any questions, we just love for you to go visit a chapter at trianglebni.com. Tells you, it allows you to research all the different chapters in the area. So, like I said, we just love to have you come visit, see what it's like. If you or somebody you know is trying to start a business or wants to grow a business, meet great people like Kenny here who have used BNI to grow their business. And the financial seat, and we've talked about this on the show before, the two toughest referral partners are financial and health because there are just some questions you don't ask people. You
Yes.
know? So, again, you alluded to earlier just a long lead time of building that like, know, and trust is kind of you have to go through a lot of different things or a lot of different situations to get to that point, whether they're looking for you as Kenny, they're looking for what your firm does. So there's all kind of factors that go into finally making that connection and getting somebody on board, right?
It does take some time, and again, it goes back to know, like, and trust, and how does that referral actually ultimately get to you? From my standpoint in BNI, it's my members have to know, like, and trust me, and they have to get to know me so they feel comfortable giving the referral, right? I mean, as you said, the transaction or the financial seat is it takes a long lead time. A lot of things are transactional, and I can send someone to you, and if they have a bad experience, they go find another guy that
Yeah.
can handle getting rid of pests.
Yeah.
To where if you reach out to someone and say, "You need to talk to this guy about their money," a guard goes up. I
Oh, it
think
changes
sometimes
everything. Yep.
changes everything,
Yep.
and so you as my another BNI member really have to know what I offer, what I'm about, how long I've been doing it, and what sets me apart. To put the client or the potential client or the potential referral at ease. They're like, okay, maybe I do need to go see this guy. And it's been successful. It's worked well within our chapter. Very happy with everything that's going on in our chapter and the referrals that receive.
And again, we were talking earlier about this. There are different ways to measure how BNI helps your business, and you and I are on the exact opposite ends. You, like you said earlier, you get 2 correct clients in a year, and you're good with your
Yeah,
chapter, right?
exactly. Right. So that's the way I look at it. And I also BNI is helping me help my clients.
Mhm.
You're talking to a client in a client review or something, and they're talking about, a roof leak, or they're talking about, they got cockroaches everywhere, or whatever it may be. Their grandmother passed away and they need help with the estate, or whatever it may be. I know someone that I can say, "Hey,
Mhm.
go see this guy, go see Joe, go see this person,"
Oh, yeah.
whoever that person may be.
Yep.
It's, back to BNI, giver's gain, right?
Yes.
And so, if I can help my clients just a little bit more, that makes them more appreciative of me and as a go-to for all of their needs, not
Oh,
just their
yeah.
financial needs.
Oh, yeah, because BNI makes us the hero to our clients because they
Correct.
mention one thing, and you're looking at, I mean, when you sit down with a client, I mean, you're looking at a lot of their books, probably their whole life. So you can see different parts of what they're doing or what they have or what they're looking for, and BNI gives you a chance to, well, then once you get into that subject, I know somebody I think could help you. Yeah.
Exactly, and, I mean, we're in a chapter of about 18 individuals, and
Mhm.
so that is probably right in the average of BNI chapters in the triangle, but it's always good to go visit other chapters just so you can kind of find someone else that may not be in that seat and within our BNI.
Yes.
And so BNI is a great way to build your network of referrals and be that one source for our client.
Mm. So when was literally the first time you ever heard BNI?
It was probably August of 2016, and ironically, and I just thought of it when, you asked me the question, was the first BNI I ever attended was at Glenwood South Connections, which is where we are currently, and they had a visitor day, and they had a tremendous turnout, and they already had a financial advisor, so I just visited, and that's when I kind of first learned the concept of BNI, and it took a little while. I did find, there was an opening at one point in the BNI. I think it's RDO5 that meets at La Trolley every
Mhm.
Thursday morning.
Yep.
Matt Yablonsky and his group they have a very good chapter out there. So I went, I applied. There were like 6 or 7 financial advisors, and they whittled it down to 2 advisors, and they chose someone else. And then I ended up finding RD 21, which is
Mhm.
Glenwood South Connections, and it's been my home ever since.
So who invited you, or how'd you find out about that chapter and that day to go?
I think it was someone from RDO5 recommended that there was a seat
Mhm.
open at RD21, and I believe it was Brandon
The
that
electrician,
recommended
yep,
me. Yes,
okay.
the electrician.
Yeah.
And so that's how he was the one that told me to go visit. I met with Sandra,
Mhm.
who was the realtor, who is
Been
the
on the
realtor in
show,
the
yep,
group. Yes. And so from there, it's history.
okay.
And
So when you walked in the first time, did you have any expectations of anything?
I really didn't know what to think.
Mhm.
It was an interesting concept to me, which I haven't been around a ton of that type of marketing in the past. And so, but I liked it because it's a group. It's almost an extended
Mhm.
family. That's how well you get to know
Yep.
everyone. And a little maybe intimidating in the very beginning, my first or second just visit to BNI's. But after that, I became very comfortable. And it was an easy transition to moving into that role and figuring out all of the benefits that
Mhm.
it offers. It's more than just, transactional. It's
Oh, yeah,
building relationships
very much so, yeah.
with your
So
members.
when you left that meeting that day, now what's going through your head as you're driving back to the office thinking, "Ooh, this could work. I could maybe do this," or whether it was with that chapter or not, just with BNI in general?
It really opens your mind into how you can interact. And even today, it's in the mindset. You're thinking about different people, whether someone's having trouble with this, you're like, okay, how can I get this person introduced to this person?
Mhm.
And it's just always part of my mindset and what I'm thinking about. Like my wife spoke to someone who may or may not be going through some marital issues.
Mhm.
And I'm like, well, if she does decide to do anything, I have your person.
Mhm.
And so it's just always right there. And it allows me to tell my wife, because she's has her ears on the ground all the time and mommy groups and different things
Oh,
like
yeah.
that, to where, if you're hearing of anyone, let me know, because I probably have a guy
Yeah.
that can help them out.
So the first time and Coach Chris has been a guest on the show. So the first time he stood up and you watched him do his 45 seconds with the stretching and everything, was that not the funniest
Oh,
thing?
it's the funniest thing, and Coach Chris is great. I personally worked out with him.
Mhm.
I love working out with him. I played college football, and so I have some knowledge of lifting and everything, but you wanna get a really good workout, I would go see Coach Chris at Personally Fit. It's
Yeah.
a Not only is it a good workout, it's a lot of fun to be there. If you've ever gone there, it's a family atmosphere again.
Mm.
It's not all just train, train, train. There's some laughs. There's a lot of fun in working out with Coach Chris.
He actually did his 45-second. He stood up here with his band and everything, did that, and just yeah, Amnon loved that because they're like, okay, this will be different when he says
This is definitely different.
but it makes sense that you can you can just exercise your body. You don't have to be in a gym to do that. So
You don't have to be in a gym, and it's good just to move, right?
yeah, oh
We're
yeah,
becoming so sedentary these days, just
yeah,
sitting in chairs or staring at our phones. You have to get the blood moving. You have to get the body moving, even if it's walking.
yeah.
It's something, and it makes a big difference.
All right, so we're going to get back to your wife here in a second. One of the best stories that I've heard in all of BNI in the years I've been here is how you met your wife. You've told it to me before. It's a classic story. I want you to tell everybody all the details on how this worked out. And then the other thing, I don't know if I asked you the first time, is will both of you tell it the same way?
Yes to that.
Okay.
We'll both tell 90% of it the
Okay.
same way,
Fair
okay?
enough.
So, in New York, it was almost religion that you went out every Thursday or Friday after work just for one quick cocktail or one iced tea, whatever it was. You just had to go out and kind of blow some steam off. And so one Thursday night, I missed my train, which was the 5:33 to Maryland Avenue. And the next train was a 6:08. So jumped on that, saw this beautiful blonde, and I'm like, wow, this is incredible. Just fate or whatever. Um, didn't talk to her that day. I continued to skip my 5:33. I would sit in Penn Station and read the New York Post and, get on the 6:08, and she was repeatedly on the 6:08. So I'm like, okay, finally got up the nerve to talk to her after 2 or 3 weeks, and we hit it off. We sat together for another couple weeks, had a lot of fun conversations. And so I finally said, I'd love to go out. You want to go see a movie or something? And she said no. And I'm like, I've been talking to her for 3 or 4 weeks. There's no inclination of a boyfriend or anything. And she says no. So persistence pays off. I got back on the horse and continued to talk to her. And 2 or 3 weeks later, she asked me out. And at that time, I'm like, yes, but there's one problem. My car's on my last leg. And so you have to drive. And she said, okay, no problem. And so we proceeded to go see Something About Mary. Now, if all of you remember that movie, or if you haven't seen it, go see it. It should give you some good laughs. And the rest is history. We ended up getting married or engaged, excuse me, on the train platform for where we first spoke, which was
Oh, okay.
somewhat sentimental. And I don't know if I told you
I
that.
don't I don't recall that. Yeah.
And during, we got married in a Catholic church, and it wasn't the same train station, but a train went by and like kind of blew its horn. I didn't set that up. It just happened to be the time of the wedding and everything.
Oh,
So there's a lot of connection to the Long Island Railroad.
okay. What if that's and again, we go back to this show is all about stories and right place, right time for business, for personal reasons or
Yep.
whatever. That you missed that 5:30. Yeah. I mean,
Yeah,
what happens
it's
if you make
incredible.
that 5:33? Where are you today? What happened? Right?
Yeah, I have no idea where I would
Yeah.
be. Yeah, it's
She'd
fate.
miss out on the best husband in the free world, wouldn't
I
she?
missed out. I would have missed out on the best wife in the world.
Well, that's a given. So
Yes, exactly.
that's funny. Did she ever tell you why she said no the first time?
She has told everyone she liked me and kind of froze. Just didn't know what to say. She had told her friends about the guy on the train. So
Mm.
I think there's a book called The Girl on the Train, but I was the guy on the train, and she just kind of froze and said no. And so probably what isn't told as much, and some people will use the word stalked her.
Uh-huh. Yes.
And so she didn't know that I'd been on the train for, I think, 3 weeks. skipping the train. She didn't know that
Okay.
until this was in August, and we were at a Halloween, party with a bunch of my coworkers, and one of the coworkers walked up to her and said, "So how does it feel to be stalked?" And she's like, "What are you talking about?" And that's where kind of she realized that I put some effort into
Mhm.
skipping a train and taking the chance on hoping we could meet, speak, and
Which
the
should
rest
earn
is
you more
history.
points, right? I think.
Yes. I believe it, yes. So, I think at first she was kinda taken back, and then she respected it and thought
Mhm.
that was really cool that,
Oh,
I
yeah.
put in the effort, and it worked out. 2
Uh,
beautiful kids and a dog,
there you go.
18 years later, it's
Yeah.
been a great ride.
I'd love to hear what her friends initially told her when she goes, "Wait, this guy did what?"
Yeah. They were a little surprised, and it made them take a double look at me and probably do a little bit of a background investigation,
Probably
but
so.
fortunately, the investigation was clean.
Yes. Oh, yeah.
Right.
Yeah. That's fun. That's such a good that's one of the best, meeting stories, how
Right.
somebody met their spouse, that
It
I've heard in
just
a
fate.
long
I mean, like
time.
I said, there was a train at 5:33 and I just missed it too. Like, the doors were closing in my
Yeah.
face and they don't let you back on,
And you're screaming, right?
Yeah, like, come on, and back up to the waiting room and caught the 6:08. And we were ironically in, New York over the holidays, a little bit before the holidays for some festivities with, ex coworkers and family, seeing family. And I was in Penn Station to go to a Hofstra football reunion,
Mhm.
and I come up if you know Penn Station, you down to whatever track that you board the train and the train comes in. And so I got off, I walked right up and I turned around and there was a sign that said 608 to Huntington. So I took a
Nice.
snapshot, sent it to her, and I said where it all began. So just kind of weird. I was back in New York,
Yeah.
over the holidays and
That's
I
funny.
saw the sign for the 608.
Wonderful story. I love that. Just what it tells you about a bigger picture, but we'll get
Exactly.
into that later. So Hofstra, you are a celebrated college football athlete.
I don't know about celebrated, but a college football
Okay,
athlete.
so
Yes.
we talked earlier about the show here, Raleigh, Durham, Chapel Hill is called the Triangle area. You have your own triangle. You go from tiny Lewisburg High School in Kansas.
Correct.
Couple thousand people in town.
In town.
How
And
many?
I'm related to half of them
It's just
probably.
I think people picked up on that.
Right.
How many people in your graduating class?
87.
Okay. So what got you? How'd you get to Hofstra?
I had a chance to play a lot of Division II, college football around Kansas, and I was entertaining it,
Pretty good
and
programs too
yeah,
around
there's some
Kansas.
decent
Yeah.
programs around there, and there was a wide receivers coach at Kansas State University who got the offensive coordinator job at Hofstra University at the same time. So, 18 years in a small town, he's like, "A free recruiting trip to the big city. This is gonna be awesome." And so, I took the recruiting trip, fell in love with the place, flew back and told my parents, "I really wanna go to Hofstra." And they're like, "You can't have your car." In Kansas, your car is your life,
Mhm.
right? You
Yeah.
can't get anywhere without a car. And I was like, "Okay, that's fine. I still wanna go." And that's when I think they really were like, "Oh my gosh, this kid from a town of 2,000 people is going to Long Island, Hempstead, New York, which is on Long Island,
Mhm.
26 miles from New York City, and probably the whole population there is 8 million in the greater New York metro area
Yeah.
versus a town of 2,000. The first day we were there for practice and we were having training table, and I said, "What is this?" And they're like, "That's chicken cordon bleu."
Wow.
Never in the world had I had chicken cordon bleu, and so I tell everyone, the education at Hofstra was great, and that was somewhat of a transition, but the social side of it was a much bigger
Mhm.
transition, learning about everything that New York has to offer, every group, their ethnicity, the
Yeah.
food, everything outside was an education for me. I was constantly learning what about different groups, where they lived, what they stood for, the foods they ate, and it was a lot of fun. And I figured after 4 years, I would probably go back to small town Kansas, and I actually went a month without a job, and I was staying with some friends, and I got a letter back when you wrote letters,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
My grandfather sent me a letter. He goes, "Son, it's time to come home. You spent, time in New York. It's time to come back." And that's when, within maybe a week of that, I actually found a job with Oppenheimer and Company, and the rest is history. I was there for close to 25 years, uh, with a company called Oppenheimer& and Company and a company called Raymond James Financial.
Mhm.
Probably the most memorable moment, X meeting my wife would be 9/11. We were a block and a half away from probably less than a block and a half
Wow.
away from the trade centers, and that day's the day you'll never forget. Being there next to it and watching everything that went on was, eye-opening, and those were the days I think of the StarTAC
Mhm.
phone, and there was no cell communication hardly. You couldn't contact anyone within New York. I was trying to call my wife, let her know I was okay. I couldn't get through. Ironically, I could call my mom in Kansas and get through, and then she'd call my
Oh,
wife.
wow.
So, just ironic that how the cell system works or whatever happened that day. I just happened to get lucky to reach my mom. I tried my wife frantically
Oh, I
and
bet.
did to
Yeah.
no success, and then got through to my mom. So, New York was a great place. It's fun to visit. It was on the railroad every day for a long time, 5:37 in the morning, and you're standing.
Yeah.
That's how
Oh,
crowded the railroad
yeah.
is these days, and so, a lot of good memories. I love going back, seeing good friends, having good food.
Oh, the
Back there, the
food,
food is
yeah.
delicious.
But your first month there, well, you saw things you'd never seen before, just in people
Everything I'd
alone.
never seen before.
Well,
Yes,
yeah, the chicken cordon bleu is probably a good
right.
one. But just the things but you're right, that education part of it. What I like about sports, having grown up playing sports, not at that level, but just playing all kinds of sports and coaching my boys through sports, so many life lessons to learn in sports. What what was it? First of all, what number did you wear in football?
87.
Okay, you played a lot.
Yes.
Okay. What did you take away just from that experience being on a team at that level that maybe you have applied to just your business world, relationships with people, all that good stuff?
I think all of that comes back to what you say is, for me, is persistence. It takes a lot of work, and there are some people that are really good high school athletes
Mhm.
that get to college and realize how much work it really is, and they don't wanna put in that work,
Yes.
right? Only so many people make it to college, and only so many people from college make it to the pros. It's the work that you have to put in. You're there with 100 other players, really, on a football team,
Mhm.
roughly 85 to 100 players. You have to get along with them. And you also have to know your role, right? There's 11 people on the offensive side of the ball. Everyone is accountable to do what they're told on that certain, right? If one person fails, the odds that the play doesn't become successful go up dramatically. And that also helps me in just my personal life and in my professional life, staying with the plan. This is how we're supposed to do this. This is how this is designed. And staying with it and implementing it usually gets you to your end result. So, persistence, I think learning how to get along and interacting with people. And when you're with someone, as much as I was during team meetings, traveling to different schools, playing games with them, you get to know them and you get to know a little bit more about them personally and their life and where they came from. And my background was certainly different than a lot of people who grew up in the Northeast, but you would connect with them and learn how they grew up. And so I think I'm somewhat of a people person. I like to get to know people more than just, hi, how are you?
Yeah.
I like to know where you're from. My partner will always say, I remember dates. I don't forget birthdays. Like someone tells me their birthday and I can pull numbers out of the sky sometimes. And he's like, how do you remember that? And it's just something that is there. So you take a lot from college
Yeah.
athletics. It's
Oh,
definitely can teach you a lot to help you throughout the rest of your life.
and I'm sure you were bummed like everybody else was. It was 2009, they dropped the football
They
program?
did.
Yeah.
Disappointing, and up to that point, I was involved in the Pride Club I was on, which is the booster club of Hofstra Pride. Um, I was on the board of that. We found out that day, and as a mature person now, I can understand it a little bit more. Unfortunately, Long Island has the Nets, the Mets, the Jets,
Mhm.
the Giants,
Yeah.
3 hockey teams, 3 basketball teams, and 2 baseball teams. College sports is the back page of the back page of the back page of the newspaper. There's just not a lot of interest to where I think other regions of the country are much more interested in college sports. Friday Night Lights, the
Oh,
game on Saturday.
yep.
A lot of the stadiums in New York, high school stadiums didn't even have lights, and that led them to playing games on Saturday. which competed with us for attendance.
Mhm.
And I think being that close to New York City, people were too busy with their own lives, whether it was taking their kids to soccer, whether it was doing this. The world didn't stop for college football like it does at an Ohio State or a Michigan or,
Or in the South, yeah. Yeah.
Louisiana,
Oh, yeah.
LSU. And so the more that kind of took a deep breath and understood why he was canceling the program, he ended up the president built a med school, and so that is up and running. And I can't fault that.
Yeah.
But it's sad to see a program, disbanded. That being said, we get together every year, and that's one of the reasons why it's back in New York. As alum, we get back together once a year and just kind of meet up with old players,
Cool.
co-players, and everything. So it's a lot of fun.
And the stories get better.
The stories get better. Yes,
You
exactly.
get faster, you could jump higher,
Yeah.
you could throw the ball farther.
Yes, exactly.
And everybody's nodding, "Oh, yeah, yeah, I remember
It's
that."
interesting to see how people have, some are much heavier, some are smaller, just the change in
Yes.
over time. And,
Oh, yeah.
been out of school for a little while now, so the
You're doing all
metabolism
right,
is
yeah.
slowing down for everyone.
And if you are an NFL fan, a couple names came out of Hofstra, Wayne Corbett and Marcus Colston.
Correct.
So if you're your NFL wide receivers, there were two good ones right there.
What Wayne and I played together for a couple of years, and
Okay.
so he played a lot more than I did,
Okay.
but he, one of the hardest workers I've ever seen. I mean, if there's such thing as a football nerd,
Yeah.
he was the guy. Worked, eat, lived football, lifted, came back every year bigger and stronger. Uh, I wish I could trade him places. That's how, the desire that I always had to play, but just not quick enough to take it to the next level, fast enough to go to the next level. But Wayne he's a great person, still is. He's works hard, he worked hard and deserved everything.
We had a good run in the NFL.
He had a really good run.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, he's dealing with some concussion syndrome, but he's a really, really good person.
I know, like I said, I'm a big fan of just playing a sport or being on a team, whether it's like your oldest son in the band, just something that gets you on a team to understand hard work, building relationships, and very few people bring up the part of knowing your role. It's
Yeah,
just like in life and business. My brother and I mean, I know my role just
exactly.
in the business.
And
Yeah.
I think as an advisor, you have to know your role also. Like, we know about taxes, we know about estate planning, but we are not those people, right? We know when to refer that out. We know when it's not kind of our lane, when we know when it's not our role. And then we can help people fill that void through BNI.
Being I guess I can say small independent firm, is there an ultimate client for you, the type of person or the time in their life or situation that you're looking for from somebody?
From a client standpoint, I think being independent allows us to really get to know our clients. We're not transaction based. We develop a relationship with our clients, where they are in their life, and everything with our clients begin with a plan. We're not here to sell you a product. Let's learn about you. Let's learn about where you are. Let's learn about where you want to go and how you want to get there. And that's where we start every relationship. And that helps us get to know you and understand where you want to go. We work with clients from all ages, from 30 up to the 70s. But you have to be a right fit, I think, and that's probably something you don't hear very often is we have to like you and you have to like us. A lot of people think they can just show up and they automatically become a client. That's not really true. You have to fit what we're looking for and we have to fit what you're looking for. And if that's a match, we know that pretty quickly and we'll develop a relationship and work to really get to know yourself, the client, and start with that plan and go from
In the successful companies, no matter what industry you're in, they know who they are.
there. Correct.
And sounds like you guys,
We know who we
and even
are.
though you're 2 years old, you knew what you wanted to be when you started, which is why you guys started the company, right?
Correct. We love to get to the independent side where we could really have the ability to offer anything to anyone if it fits it within the plan. If it doesn't, then we're not going to force it in. And that's where I think is a big differentiator in being independent.
And talking about knowing your role, not only in football, but in wealth management, finance, all the whatever however you want to call that, on what you're doing for that particular client. Your role in your chapter as president is to do what? Now that you've been in it a while, what's what's a key thing for the president to know and to do?
Of
Mhm.
RD21?
Yep.
I think it's to lead and set the vision, right?
Yep.
Where do we wanna go? Do we wanna grow to 36 members? Would we rather grow from 18 to 25 and let's just work quality over quantity? And that's kind of, I think, where the president sets the tone. Obviously, we run the meeting and all of the administrative stuff. I mean, I have a great leadership team underneath me that
Yep.
actually does a great job in helping me be able to do what I wanna do and what we should do, but again, it's know your role and where we wanna go, and that's, I think, one of the biggest things that a president.
The size of the BNI chapters vary from 11 to, I think, 47 full city. I think they're up to
That's a great
47.
chapter. If you
It
ever get
is.
a chance, go visit
Oh, yeah.
because it is,
I've
it's
we've had a
very
couple
disciplined.
we've had a couple people from that chapter on, and I call them the New York Yankees and Manchester United of Triangle BNI.
It's a very good reference.
They're just what everybody they're the biggest one, and there's some others that are chasing them on, uh, how successful they are in doing that. But some people don't want that big of a chapter, and then some people don't want 11. They'd rather have that. So it's always interesting when I talk to people why one of the reasons why they joined the chapter they did, not only was date and time and location good, but the size of the chapters. I don't know that I'd want 45 people in a chapter. I don't know if I could get to know everybody, but man, for those size chapters, it works because they're killing it.
It does work well, but again, back to what you want as a chapter,
Mhm.
right? How you wanna get there, and I think we've turned down some people because it just wasn't a right fit. It was a need that we needed. It was a position or a trade that could have fit really well within the group. But if it's not going to be a fit and maybe they don't understand the BNI or there's personality differences, it's not worth taking that risk
Yeah.
of bringing someone on that's not going to uh, embrace what is there today.
Well, and that goes back to no matter what you're in, sports, politics, business, or whatever, I think the line is you're only as strong as your weakest link. And if you let some, like, you're talking about 11 people on the field on offense
Right.
or defense, and you got one that's just, not pulling their weight, it shows
Yep.
pretty quick
It does.
and they'll find them. The
It
opponents
doesn't
will
take
find them.
long, right, to find them.
So, talking to a couple of your chapter members, just sent them a note, said, "Hey, Kenny's going to be on the show. Give me a good story." Of course, three of them told me about how you met your wife, which once they told me that, I remember because you had told me that. And the other thing, somebody said maybe that you were a bouncer.
Believe it or not, that's true. At Hofstra, it was called the Lion's Den, and bouncer's probably that was my title, but I basically checked IDs to where if you were in, you're in, uh, and then we went from there. So every once in a while, there were an occasional uh, skirmish that myself and about 10 others quickly broke up, but it was not that Ralph and Rowdy bouncer that you may imagine, but I was a bouncer for a while. It was a lot of fun, and while we were in school, we were actually allowed to get paid, so we weren't under the Division I rules,
Yeah, because you
whatever.
guys were
So
Division III at the time,
that's
right?
right.
Okay.
So it was easy job to I won't say easy, but an enjoyable job to work. We didn't start till 4 or 5 in the off season at night, and it would go till 2 or 3, and then all of us would go to the local diner and have, burgers and fries.
So,
So
were other football players bouncers
oh,
as
yeah,
well?
yeah, yeah,
Okay.
most of us
So, fights stopped pretty quick once they saw you guys coming up to check out the situation, right?
I was the last one to get there, but yes, it was almost over by the time I got there, but it was a lot of fun, and we have some great memories.
Now that probably helped your negotiating skills at the door for that young man with his date trying to get in and he couldn't, right?
It helped my negotiating skills tremendously, and it was a lot of fun. I mean, and then you'd see even back in everyone had a fake ID,
Oh,
right?
yeah,
And
yeah.
like, okay, this is not all
Yeah.
right. Go back and come back with a better one, but this was not allowed. Like, I don't know where you got this,
Yeah.
but you should tell them
Get your money back,
you get your
right?
money back. Exactly.
What was the drinking age then? So this
It was
was
21.
91,
Yeah, it was
92?
21, 90, yeah, 90, 89 to 92.
Okay, right.
Yeah, so it was still 21.
Oh, the stories you must have heard about, "Oh, I left it at home," or it just yeah.
Yeah,
Pick
and there were some good ones, and every once in a while, someone would come in with an ID, And then I don't know how they got back out and they got a stamp, and so they came back in. Well, they gave their ID to someone else in the line. I'm like,
Yeah.
"No, this guy's already in the door." Like, "Okay, nice try. Now this ID is confiscated."
They don't think it all the way. They don't think they're
It was a
playing all the way
great
through, do
plan.
they? But they didn't think it through.
Or
Like,
they thought doormen were changing and no
yeah.
one would ever catch it. But it was, there were a lot of good stories.
But those are the type of jobs that I feel for people that didn't have. Like my first job was just working at Roy Rogers Barbecue, here in
Yeah.
Raleigh. Just you got to have those jobs just to learn and understand and look back on. Yeah, and you learned a little bit of just kind of how to do things when you're that age. So
You learn a lot from those kind of first jobs. You learn to interact with different people. You learn how to react to not doing things that you don't wanna do, right? There's a lot of things you didn't wanna do, whether it was working on the farm, whether it was working in a restaurant,
yeah,
or even some of the, bouncing stuff wasn't stuff that you wanted to do, but that was part of the job,
yeah,
and
yeah.
there's no perfect job. I don't think I found one yet. I don't know if it exists. There's always something that you don't like
Mm,
about a job. It may only be 1 or 2% of the job. There's still some part of the job that you may not like.
oh yeah. Do you remember your first client?
I do, still a client today. Eh,
Not where you are now. Going all the way back to your first job. You remember or how you got them? Were you cold calling at the time? Because you
Back
were
then, I
new?
was not. I
Okay.
didn't do a lot of that in the beginning, but, I still remember the relationships, some of the first relationships, and they're still in existence.
Oh, very
So,
good.
yeah,
Okay.
it's
Yeah.
there's some that aren't, but there are a bunch that are still in.
And people don't give themselves credit. Most people aren't going to stand up and brag and say, "Oh, I'm great at this. I do that." But when they stop and think, and that's to me, that's the ultimate compliment to you as a person and a financial guy is so somebody now been with you 20 plus
We've
years.
had a relationship for that long.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that to me, that speaks more about you than almost anything that somebody would be willing to carry that relationship on with or without money.
And it's a two-way street, right?
Mm,
They have to put in the effort, and I have to put in the effort. I think that's make a successful relationship, it can't be a one, right? I
right.
can't always be calling you or always hounding you. It's a two-way street, and that makes the best relationship, where there's open dialogue, honest dialogue. I think that's another thing in relationships is honesty.
Mm,
I've seen a lot of financial plans that need a lot of work, and you have to be honest with them. If you're really doing what is in the best interest, you have to say, "Here's where we need to do some serious."
yeah. And I like people that tell the story of a client came in and they looked at the client and said, I can't help you. This is good stuff. What you have, keep it. And
There are a couple
oh,
occasions.
yeah, and that tells me about that person. The successful people will turn down business because you could gouge the no, gouge is the wrong word. You could tell the person, "Hey, I can do better," but when you tell a person, "This is pretty good. I can't beat this," or "You need to stay where you are," they're gonna remember that.
But you have to.
Yeah.
Again, in the best interest of the
Mhm.
client.
Yeah.
And if we can't help them because they're financially set or they're with someone who's doing the right things by them, it's a home run. It's happy to see. It's
Mhm.
actually rewarding to see that someone walks in and they're like financially sound. Their plan and their investments and everything is set. Great to see them. Like I said, they walk away saying thank you and
Yeah.
you go from there.
And I think, though, people remember that down the road, like, "Kenny, he told us everything's good. I'm
They
gonna
definitely
call him
have,
back." Yeah.
and
Oh,
if
yeah.
we haven't got to the situation, I don't think, to where someone has actually come back, but I know some people have told other people, which
And
helps
that's
generate
yeah,
buzz and bring people into the
that's
office.
one of the ultimate compliments, I think.
That's right.
What are the 1 or 2 questions, if we're coming to somebody like you, that we need to make sure we ask, either about you or for us?
One more time?
What would I ask you if I'm coming to see you and I want to do business with you? What do I need to ask you to find out more about from a professional standpoint how you do things?
I think it's, a what's our charge? What's our fee? How
Mhm.
do we charge people? Some people charge by a transaction fee, some people charge by assets under management,
Okay.
percentage of assets under management. That's how we, and if they're completely independent to where they can offer multiple products.
Okay. So what are the red flags you would get from me just by asking me questions? What do I need to have buttoned up before I walk in and see you? Other than more than 2,800 bucks.
No, no. I just think, I mean, the most important thing I think you have to anyone that comes in has to be honest about what they have,
Okay.
open about what they have, and are they willing to do the necessary steps, invest the time to help themselves and let us help them get to where they need.
Okay.
And you have to be honest. You can't say this and really not have it, if
Yeah.
that makes
No, I'm
sense.
you would want to see somebody, they're walking in with their paperwork. If they're really wanting to talk, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
And if they don't come in with their paperwork, it's somewhat understandable, but at least we're talking about what really matters. And sometimes you can kind of get the point if they're just feeling you out
Yeah.
and they are somewhere else and they're just coming to feel you out for whatever reason. But a lot of times they have to you have to have start with an open dialogue and an open, honest discussion about where you are. We've seen everything, so no one should ever be embarrassed. Let's put it that way.
Oh, yeah.
We've seen it all. And so we're more than happy to sit down with people and have an open, honest discussion about where you are, how we can help, or if we can help, and we go from there.
Yeah, because I'm sure you guys have seen people that have earned and lost for, whatever reason, but
Correct.
so that's just their story, right?
That and there's nothing to be ashamed of. That's
No.
life.
Oh,
We've all
yeah.
gone through ups and
Oh,
downs, and
gosh, yes.
everyone will go through ups and downs throughout their life.
Yep. So looking ahead to 2019, what's a couple things you're looking for from your BNI chapter for you, not only how to get engaged more so they can send you referrals, what are you looking for now that you know a little bit more in BNI, how you're looking to help the chapter?
I think after being in the chapter for maybe close to 2 years now, it's getting to know the new members
Mm.
and getting to know the members that have been here a long time even better. And like I said, sometimes it takes a while to learn and to listen for how you can refer
Yeah.
someone. And so I think 2019 is more about getting to know each and every member on a personal level, but also on a professional. And how can I help them grow their business?
Yeah. And it's, we all have the goals of the one-to-ones and the visitors and everything. And the people that are successful in BNI have that. They know, hey, each week I'm meeting with, pick a number, and
Yeah,
they do it.
you it's like anything.
Mhm.
What you put into it is what you'll get out of it.
Oh, very
And if
much
you're
so.
gonna put in 5 one-to-ones every week, it's gotta lead to something,
Mhm.
right? That's a lot of one-on-ones. We're all busy with our time, and that's 5 hours out of the week. And maybe you could do 10, but set a goal that's reasonable
Yeah.
and stick to it.
And you guys obviously through, your company have numbers to hit as well. Is it more the people, clients or numbers? How do you guys look at it
We
different?
all have our own goals, right?
Okay.
My partner has a goal, I have a goal, and the guy that we just added has a goal.
Mhm.
And it's about the amount of around the assets that we
Okay.
right? And so that is kind of a goal for us. Just continue to grow assets, continue to really do what is right by the client, and I think the rest will take care of itself.
If you wanna know more about, Triangle BNI and BNI in general, please go to trianglebni.com. Give you some good information about what Triangle BNI is all about. You're gonna meet wonderful people like Kenny here. We recommend that you just go visit a chapter, and we will continue to bring you wonderful stories on the show each week. Next week, we have Ricky Treffer with Hunter Row Real Estate. We thank you for joining us today. We'll see you next week on Triangle BNI.
You are tuned to the Nissan Communications Network. If you tuned in too late, you can always watch each program in its entirety or download an MP3 audio file of it in the archives section at nissancommunications.com. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel, follow us on Twitter, and like us on Facebook. Sponsored by Telestream's Wirecast software, StreamingGear.com, Carolina Apparel, and DeltaForce.net.